Greetings, everyone. This is Caroline Staten with Transition US, and we welcome you to our teleseminar today, REconomy, Enterprises that Build Resilience. And we have a couple of guests with us, and Marissa Momartz as well from Transition US. And just wanted to mention a couple of things before we begin. We're sponsoring this call, and Transition US, for those of you who might not know this, it's the national hub of the International Transition Network, which is now in 50 countries around the world. And more information can be found on our website at transitionus.org. Our principal aim in providing these teleseminars is to offer practical support and inspiration to leaders of transition initiatives, those who are considering starting an initiative, and community leaders across the country and in other countries who are working on building resilience within their own communities. And we ideally would love to offer these at no cost, which we do, but ask that you consider offering a donation to us for this work. It's a lot of love and time and energy on our side, and your support would be gratefully appreciated. We have a donation button on our website at transitionus.org. And for those of you that are unable to do that, financially contribute, just ask you to get out there and build resilience in your communities more feverishly than ever. So thank you for that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Marissa Momartz. She's the Director of Programs at Transition US and is the author of the REconomy Report that recently came out, 25 Enterprises that Build Resilience. And Marissa has with her today some guests from that report. So she'll be bringing them in and introducing them. So Marissa, over to you.
Thank you, Caroline. And I just wanted to add that we're recording this call today, and we'll be posting the recording on our website and have already posted the presentations, the visual side, so you'll be able to share it with others in the future, and we encourage you to do that. So welcome, and thank you so much to everyone for joining today's call, especially our guest speakers, Sandy Bishop and the rest of the team from the Lopez Community Land Trust, as well as Deborah Stinson from the Local Investing Opportunities Network. I'll introduce them both in more detail in just a few minutes, but first I want to give you a little more background on the topic for today's call, the REconomy Project and businesses that build community resilience. So I'm going to be starting with the first PDF presentation that you received either via email or it's on our website, the one that's called Introduction REconomy. My name is Marissa. I've been on staff at Transition US for almost 4 years, and I've also been involved in local and regional transition efforts in Northern California. And I'm the lead on our REconomy project focused on local economic transformation. So to start, I just want to do a few quick polls to get a sense of our audience and your level of familiarity with the REconomy ideas as well as the new report we just put out. So if you could please hit 1 on your keypad if you've already read our REconomy report. Hit 2 on your keypad if you're aware of the report but haven't read it yet. And then hit 3 on your keypad if this is the first time you've heard about this REconomy report. 25 Enterprises that Build Resilience is what it's called.
So Marissa, the polling is coming in. So again, 1 if you've read the report, 2 if you're aware of it, and 3 if this is the first time you've heard of it. So at this point we have 17% of the people on the call that have read it. Oops, 13%, excuse me. 20% who are aware of it, 27% who are hearing about it for the first time, and a few people that did not participate in the poll.
Okay, great. That's good to know. I'm glad folks are getting exposed to it for the first time, and I hope this call will pique your interest and make you want to read it. Okay, the next question I have is, if you could hit 1 on your keypad if you are interested in starting a REconomy or local economy project or a resilience building business in your community. If you're interested in starting something like that, hit 1. Hit 2 on your keypad if you're already in the process of developing one of these types of projects, local economy or resilience building business. Hit 2 on your keypad if you're already in the process of doing that. And hit 3 on your keypad if you've already done something like this, if you've already created a resilience building business or a local economy project. Hit 3 on your keypad if you've already done it.
So the polling is coming in. It looks like a number of people have not responded, so it could be that haven't considered this at all yet or are interested in giving it a thought. But at this point we have 18% pressed 1. That means, again, Marissa, that they are interested in starting an enterprise in their community. 13% hit 2, meaning that they've already started, and 10% hit 3. And that was meaning, again, Marissa,
that they've already created something
that
like
they've
that.
already created it. And then we did get 3% that pressed 4, so I think they wanted to participate anyway. So,
yeah, and that could be there isn't any interest. But the reason I'm asking that question is because part of our intention for this project is to support transition initiatives and community resilience efforts that want to be doing this local economy work. So just to get a sense of how many folks are doing that. And then finally, I wanted to ask a question about attitudes towards money, which is tied into this whole piece of work around economic transformation. So if you could hit 1 on your keypad if you would like to see more money and resources directed towards supporting community resilience and transition efforts. So 1 if you think there's a need and you want to see more money and resources in this movement. 2, if you think money and business has no place in transition or community resilience, which I know is a belief that people have, and kind of came from the roots of transition as a volunteer organization. So hit 2 on your keypad if you think money and business have no place in transition. And hit 3 on your keypad if you're somewhere in between those two or unsure.
So the polls are coming in. We didn't have anyone select 2, which was that money and business have no place in transition. So no one on this call has that belief. And 45% pressed 1. And I'll let you describe what that is again, Marissa.
Sure, just that you think that there is a need for more money and resources in the movement.
And 18% pressed 5.
So you're somewhere in between.
8 pressed 3, excuse me.
Yep. So that makes sense. I wasn't expecting a lot of folks to be attracted to this call who think that money and business have no place in transition, but it's an important conversation for us to be having. Thank you, everybody. So when I set up this call today, I wasn't thinking about the fact that it was going to be the day after the election. And I think a lot of folks are struggling to make sense of the election results and how to move forward. So I thought we could take one more poll to see how people are doing today. You could hit 1 on your keypad if you have an election hangover, you're not feeling too good about things, and you came despite that, so thank you for that. But so 1 on your keypad if you have an election hangover. 2, if you're happy with how things turned out in the election. And don't worry, we're not going to like name names about who voted for who or anything like that. It's anonymous. And hit 3 on your keypad if you're feeling even more motivated to make change locally after seeing the election results. So 1, if you're feeling not so good about things. 2, if you're happy with how things turned out. And 3, if it's giving you fuel for your activism and your community resilience work.
Oh. Okay, so the polls are coming in. 22% agree with sort of having an election hangover. 3% are happy with the results, and 48% are more motivated to get things rolling.
All right, cool. That is great. I'm glad folks are here and feeling motivated and not too disempowered. Wonderful. So I think a lot of people found this election to be particularly challenging, and it's important to remember that economic power is tied to political power. And our REconomy Project is all about providing tools and a framework for transforming our local economy to actually build community wealth and resilience, rather than extracting resources from our communities and making our communities more vulnerable. Not sure how the stock market's doing today, but from what I read, it wasn't doing so well last night. And that sort of vulnerability to global market and geopolitical forces provides even more incentive for investing in localized, resilient economies. Rob Hopkins just wrote a blog post about the connection between the election results and community resilience efforts, which you might want to check out. It's on his blog, Transition Culture. Okay, so I'm going to go to the second slide in my presentation. REconomy was started in the UK, founded by a brilliant woman named Fiona Ward, who's a member of Transition Town Totnes and has a corporate background. In Totnes, the REconomy team undertook a strategic project to convene local government and economic stakeholders to come up with a new economic vision for their community, and then conduct an economic assessment to determine the market potential for resilience-building businesses, and then to launch a number of projects to support the development of these types of businesses, including a local entrepreneur forum and a REconomy business incubator. You can learn more about both of those things on the REconomy.org website. Okay, so the next slide. Beginning in 2014, I joined on behalf of Transition US an international group of representatives from national transition hubs in 5 countries, including Mexico, Brazil, Germany, and Portugal, to receive mentoring and support to implement the REconomy Project in our respective countries and to support local transition initiatives in doing that. We were the second group of national hubs to receive this kind of support from Transition Network, and now representatives from all of these countries meet virtually and occasionally in person. One of those pictures is from the day-long REconomy event at the International Transition Network Conference last year. So we meet in person on occasion to share ideas, resources, and opportunities, and to support each other in this work. We're coming from very different economic contexts in our different countries, but we all share an understanding that the extractive global economy is at the root of the ecological and social crises we face. So there's the next 3 slides. We unfortunately don't have much time to go into, but I didn't want to take them out because they're important. So just take a minute to skim them. And for those who can't see, the first is explaining that the word economy comes from Greek oikonomia, which means management of home. And the way we manage our home resources is failing at this point, the resources of planet Earth and our bioregions, which is leading to ecological and social crises on a massive scale. But the good news is that there are many alternatives to the way we have been running our economy. Okay, so the next slide on the REconomy components REconomy has three main areas. The first is leadership projects, like economic evaluations and economic stakeholder convening. The second is economic enablers, like business incubators and local entrepreneur forums. And the third is resilience building enterprises. You can learn more about each of these areas by visiting the REconomy.org website. But our new report and today's call focus on the piece around resilience building businesses. But I realized while preparing this presentation that both of the enterprises we're going to feature today are also examples of economic enablers. Lopez Community Land Trust, because it's a strategy for community ownership of land and assets, and the Local Investing Opportunities Network, because it's a platform for channeling local investment. Okay, next slide, please. So the Lopez Community Land Trust and Local Investing Opportunities Network are just two of the 25 enterprises featured in our report. So if you haven't already, I recommend taking a look at it. These 25 enterprises were selected out of almost 70 businesses in the U.S. that were nominated by the public and reviewed by a team of new economy experts, one of whom, Kevin Bayek, is on our call today. So thank you, Kevin, again for your help with that. And the selection was based on the following criteria for resilience building enterprises, which were developed by Transition Network. Next slide. So those criteria are appropriate localization, which means the enterprises provide local goods for local people. Appropriate resource use, which means enterprises minimize waste and pollution, maximize use of renewable energy, and respect resource limits. Enterprises serve a purpose greater than profit. They have a goal of meeting community needs while providing decent livelihoods and affordable, sustainable products and services. They are part of the community, which means they treat and pay workers fairly, practice democratic governance, and build commonwealth. And they strengthen community resilience, which means they help meet community needs and the enterprise is resilient in itself. And you can go into more detail on all of these, again, on the REconomy.org website or in our new report. And these are all aspirational criteria. We're not saying any of the enterprises in the report are perfect in all of these areas, but it's things that they're thinking about and striving towards. So before I turn it over to our speakers, I just want to share a few resources where you can get more info on the REconomy Project. There's a REconomy Project page on the Transition US website that has a lot of info specific to REconomy in the US context. So this is the next slide on the resources. And there's also an International REconomy Project website page, which is REconomy.org, and that's run by Transition Network in the UK. One of our goals for the REconomy Project, like I mentioned, is to support transition initiatives and other community resilience groups in launching resilience building enterprises. And to do that, we're offering a peer support REconomy cohort for local transition and community resilience groups that want to start their own REconomy project. The deadline to register for that is next week, November 15th, and if you're interested, you can learn more and apply on our website. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sandy Bishop, who has served as Executive Director of the Lopez Community Land Trust in Lopez Island, Washington for 13 years. Sandy was a founding board member and the first Executive Director of the Lopez Community Land Trust. She also served as a project manager for 3 of the 4 CLT neighborhood developments, Morgantown, Coho, and Common Ground. The first affordable housing project was considered the premier community land trust project on the West Coast and was featured in the New York Times. She has 17 years of project management for local community-based development and is the project manager of 4 affordable housing neighborhoods. She was honored during the 2010 Green Build Chicago Conference as the winner of the Home Depot Award of Excellence for Affordable Housing Built Responsibly for her latest net zero housing project, Common Ground, which is a net zero community utilizing earth and plaster, straw bale construction, rainwater catchment, solar hot water, and grid-tied solar. She's been the guest presenter at the National Housing Forum in New Zealand, the Affordable Housing Conference on Hornby Island in British Columbia, and the President's Symposium on Sustainability at the University of Idaho. I'm especially excited about the Community Land Trust model because, in the words of Malcolm X, revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. And as my friend Mateo Nube from Movement Generation pointed out in the teleseminar we hosted with him last fall on just transition, the U.S. is noticeably absent of a strong land reform movement. But again and again, we hear from transition initiatives across the country the need for secure access to housing and land. It seems to me that community land trusts are the most promising model for providing community ownership of land and housing, and the Lopez Community Land Trust is an extraordinary example of what's possible. So over to you, Sandy. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm here with Chom Grecian, who's a board member on the Lopez Community Land Trust board, and also Rhea Miller, who is the assistant director. And I'll talk a bit and introduce the Community Land Trust, and then Rhea will take on some words, and Chom may have something to say. So, thank you, everybody. 27 years ago, Lopez Community Land Trust started as a way to create innovative solutions for our island community. In 1989, the cost of housing had just gone up 190% in that 1 year. We had the highest per capita income and the highest cost of living, but the lowest wages, and 51% of all children here live in poverty. So we ask ourselves a few questions. How do we actually keep community, the heart of a community, with so many pressures like that? Before I go into that, I want to say a little bit about, Lopez Community Land Trust is a nonprofit. And it's said that if the global nonprofit sector were a country, it would be the 16th largest economy in the world. It's also in the United States, the nonprofit sector contributed $878 billion to the economy, and that was in 2012, about a little over 5% of our GDP. Not that everything is based on GDP, but in this world, money, as we discussed earlier, does matter. So, according to the Bureau of Labor statistics, the nonprofit sector here in the U.S. employs 11.4 million people, over 10% of the American workforce. In the state of Washington, it's just a little under 10%. Community land trusts, I think, are a very powerful tool. There's over probably 220 of them operating in the United States. They are nonprofits. They hold land to benefit the community. They provide affordable access to land for affordable housing, sustainable forestry, agriculture, cottage industries, and co-ops. Community land trusts are a diverse tool. In the U.S., about 40% operate in small cities and towns, about 26% are rural, and 36% are operating in the urban areas. So one thing about Lopez Community Land Trust and our work is that we really focus deeply on community. We set about to do affordable housing for obvious reasons, the price of housing going up 190%. And from there, we said what our most important aspect is in the Community Land Trust model is our deep support of community and staying deeply local. And Rhea now will go through a little bit about some of our neighborhoods that we've worked on.
When we first started building affordable housing, we tried to get a loan in the bank from the bank for the mortgages, and none of our people qualified for a traditional bank loan. And one of the bankers we were working with suggested that we form a cooperative. So we have a layer that's on top of a community land trust, which is a cooperative. So each of our neighborhoods own all their homes together, and that enabled us to finance the building of these homes plus the subsidies that we gained. So we built our first one in 92, built a second one in 95, the third one was 2003, and then the first award-winning neighborhood that Sandy built, that's net zero. In other words, that we manufacture, we have the capability of manufacturing on site all of the energy that we can use. We did that in 2008, and then subsequently I've done 2 more net zero neighborhoods, 2012 and in 2015. But one of the things that we're known for in our community land trust is we train homeowners during the construction process. We demand sweat equity, and we also train interns. And our intern program is very strong, and many of the people who graduate from our intern program go on themselves to form nonprofits or enter the labor force as skilled workers, some of whom stay here and raise families. We, of course, got all the traditional stereotypes about affordable housing, that they'd be ugly, we'd have old cars, old couches on the porch, that kind of thing, but these homes are beautiful. We decided to be small with quality products rather than larger. And if you go to slide number 20, you can see that we started incorporating these net zero concepts, the green components, friendly, in light of global climate change. And we are now using the latest and greatest heat pumps with powered by solar photovoltaic arrays. We have rainwater catchment. In common ground, we did rainwater catchment for toilets and washing machines. Otherwise, it's been done for landscaping. We're grid-tied solar, and we do heavy insulation, deep walls, and then eco-paints, etc. We also live in an area where garbage is extremely expensive because it has to get on a truck, gets on a truck, which gets on a train, ends up on the border of a neighboring state. So with all of our projects, we have a huge emphasis on recycling and reuse, and have been very engaged in the island-wide efforts in that respect. So Common Ground was our very first net zero neighborhood, and on slide number 24, you can see some of the awards were given. We don't know who gave us the tree hugger one, but it was good. Anyway, but besides, then we did Tierra Verde and Salish neighborhoods. But
oh yeah, now you're on the second batch.
Oh yeah, so if you go to the second group of slides now, you'll just see Tierra Verde neighborhood that we did. But as we were working on affordable housing, we realized that there were other elements to building that were essential. And one of them was because we're a rural community, we wanted to work in the area of sustainable agriculture. So the first thing we did was we started producing the farm products guide, so that tourists and residents alike can see what kind of farm products they can get right from the farmer on the farm. There's a map that takes these particular farms. For a very small population, we print thousands of these farm products guides because we have a high tourist element, and they definitely utilize the farm products guide. We were the very first organization in the United States to form a mobile processing unit, mobile slaughter unit that's USDA approved. Again, because if we didn't have this, we couldn't buy meat from our neighbors on the island by the cut. We would have to buy a whole pig or half a pig, whole beef or half a beef. And we managed to get this approved. There are now something like 17 of these mobile slaughter units in North America. But we were the first. We have since sold it to a farmers cooperative on the island, but it's been very successful for our local economy. Now we can buy meat in our grocery stores or directly from our farmer by the cut. We also realized that education about eating well has to start with children, and so we co-founded the Farm to School program in the local schools. And people were concerned that, well, this might be seen as a little elitist to say that we grow organic food for school. Won't there be some pushback from the community? But actually, it was very well received because the kids went home and started asking their parents for vegetables. And we found out that anything the child cooks or grows that they eat, and it's a very successful program. It's probably one of the only ones in the country that supplies the food for the cafeteria, primarily out of its gardens. We co-founded something like a bank for fresh produce, for excess garden produce, you know, when there's too many but it's a fresh food, and we pass that off to the services center. We realized that we could grow our own grain here if we wanted to, so we formed a grain CSA where we just brokered between people who wanted to support supported agriculture between the consumer and the farmer. So we get, in this case, $20 for every one in March, so the farmer can grow wheat berries. They get 20 pounds in September and make their own flour. We made sure that they had a way to grind their flour and thresh it and grind it. We did that. And then we realized that one of the worst things that's happening with Monsanto is it's forcing people to buy seed from them. And it's, we believe, being in a rural area, that farmers and gardeners have the right to save their own seed. And also we realized that seeds that are appropriate to our microclimate were being excised off the market. So we started a seed library, and so that we can have island appropriate seeds that continue on and we don't get caught up in the Monsanto monopoly. And finally, we formed a food safety lab because the Food Safety Modernization Act went into effect in September of this year, and it means anyone who's selling a value-added product or a product to the market directly are going to have all these testing requirements, and this enables our farmers to test right here on the island, our producers, and restaurateurs that are doing value-added products without having to put it on an airplane, pay for that, and get the lab tested on the mainland. And finally, we've produced a book of our 28 farmers that's like a coffee table book with recipes that's becoming very popular. We also train sustainable ag interns as well as construction interns. But what we did not expect and what was pointed out to us was that affordable housing and doing the sustainable agriculture work makes our organization actually an incubator for business. We have, if you look on slide, the second group of slides, you'll see all of these local businesses that have been started and maintained by people who live in affordable housing. And these businesses are valued by the local residents, and they're also valued by tourists. And so our most successful businesses happen because these people have stable housing. And we've also been helpful in doing a lot of education in the community, which increases our market value because we are able to be GMO-free in our planting. Organic food has a better price than GMO-contaminated foods. We're hoping now to move into farming. We have many young farmers that want to get started, but there's no way they can pay for the real estate of a farm here. So we're hoping to start holding farms in trust, and that's our latest effort that's big. And then meanwhile, we reach out to higher learning and have done some contracting with them. What we're finding out is college students lack basic life skills and are coming out with a lot of digital ability, but not basic life skills, and they're trying to figure out how to incorporate that. And finally, we just close with a couple of quotes. One of our interns said when he came to Lopez, he wanted to be an architect of buildings, and after he left, he wanted to be an architect of community. Our mentors are Meg Wheatley, who says there's no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. And I also have to say that we really gain a lot from thinking of Fritjof Capra, especially 7 lessons for leaders of change.
So that's what we've got there. We can take some questions later on, and I think one of the things we want to say is that it sounds like we do a lot of different things in our community. And basically, as I said in the beginning, what we do is we commit deeply to our local community, and we stay within the framework of our founding purposes 27 years ago and work from there. And so what you've seen that we have done is actually the result of listening to our community and responding appropriately from our organization. So thank you.
Thank you both. What a powerful presentation, really demonstrating what's possible with a community land trust that's dedicated to affordable housing and sustainable agriculture and ecological stewardship. Thank you so much. And next we're going to hear from Deborah Stinson, who is a member of Local 2020, which is the transition initiative in Jefferson County, Port Townsend, Washington. And she's also the mayor of Port Townsend. Deborah retired to Port Townsend in 2003 after a 30-year career in information technology and has since enjoyed the opportunity to engage with her community volunteering with Local 2020. It was through that affiliation that she became a charter member of LION, the Local Investing Opportunities Network of East Jefferson County. She also coordinates the Neighborhood Preparedness Partnership and is a founding board member of the community-owned Quimper Mercantile Company. The Local Investing Opportunities Network is another very potent model for local economic transformation because it provides a vehicle for individuals to channel their investments into their community. And now I will turn it over to Deborah to tell us more, and we're going to be looking at the last presentation. Over to you, Deborah.
All right. Thank you, Marissa, and thank you, Sandy, and all for that inspirational talk on the Community Land Trust here in Port Townsend, North Olympic Peninsula. The Land Trust always comes up as a source of inspiration for us here. So, again, it was nice to see why that is. So thank you for all the work you're doing over there. So LION, what is LION is usually the first question we get. And it really is an initiative that was spun out of our local transition group, Local 2020, back in 2008 when the early inklings of the recession were coming on, and we all received our $250 checks from the government saying go out and shop to support the economy, and we're looking around at, from our economic relocalization saying, well, what good is that going to do? What can we do that's bigger and better? How can we invest this money and other monies that we have in our local economy rather than sending it off to Wall Street where it's at high risk and doing things that we don't necessarily agree with? So basically, after a lot of studying and looking at the various options that we had available to us, we came down to a very simple model. I think you'll be amazed at kind of how simplistic this is, but it's been rather potent over the years. So it really is what I refer to as a matchmaking service between the people who live here who have resources to invest, the monies that are available for an investment portfolio. It matches them up with the people in our community, mostly entrepreneurs who want to start or expand their business and need that level of investment. And it was really fortuitous that we did that at the time we did because, again, as the recession ramped up and the banking systems kind of collapsed and reformulated, a lot of people who would normally be quote-unquote bankable became suddenly not bankable. They could not. A lot of businesses were going out because they couldn't get the funding that they traditionally had acquired. So kind of like I said, we are this network of individuals who want to invest and find the businesses that are in need of that investment. The thing we are not, and sometimes that's often an easier way to describe it, we are not an investment or loan fund. We're not a pooled investment. And LION does not make any collective investment decisions or even give advice to investors and businesses. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we move on. I think the why we are doing this is pretty self-evident. We really want to have strong local businesses. One, they provide for the families that are here. They provide employment opportunities. They also provide the goods and services that we need in our community. It also gives our investors an opportunity to keep their money local. Like I said, people have retired here who have the funds to invest, but they don't necessarily want to invest in the markets, the Wall Street market. They prefer to have that money here working locally where they can see it in action and feel it's really generating strength in their own community. And by doing that, we become that much more resilient. It's when you talk about building community, when you invest in a business and you get to go into that business on a regular basis, you're a patron of that business, there's just that connection that you feel that wants you to help them succeed, and in turn they also want to help you have a good product and a good service experience. So it's just this reaffirming cycle that we have seen coming from this investment activity. If you're just scrolling through the slide, you'll see that we do invest in quite a variety of types of businesses. When we first started doing this and thinking about it, it's like, well, do we want to limit the types of businesses? Do they have to be quote-unquote green businesses? And we said no, because as we all know, there are many shades of green, and everybody has their own idea of what's important in their community. We wanted people to invest in the types of businesses that they wanted to be in their community. And so there's really no limit on the type of business. It's kind of self-limiting, right? And you'll see as we get into the process how that happens. But the first one that really kind of spurred this on is Fin River Farm and Cidery. I hope many of you have been able to enjoy that wonderful products that come out of that cidery. And they were kind of the inspiration in that there's a couple of young farmers here in Jefferson County who realized that they had to go into a value-added product. And in order to do that, they would need to have more a strong investment to build up the equipment and everything that they would need. And it was a fairly high-risk proposition, and the banks weren't really interested in talking to them. And so this young entrepreneur went back to her real estate agent, of all people, who had become a good friend and who actually at that time happened to be the mayor as well, and just said, do you know people who have money who might be willing to invest in us? And she said, sure. And she called people together, and those investments happened, and this thing started. So when we were looking around for our model on what we wanted to do, we said, this is a successful model, and we invited them back in to talk to us about what worked and what didn't work. There were a few of these over the years before we formed with various businesses, and some were successful, but there were a couple that had failed, when the people were trying to do this local investment, and we wanted to understand the pros and cons and, find the best way to do this. And so really, again, what we discovered was to expand this into being, when you look at all the different options that are available now to businesses to get their funding, oftentimes the first place people go is to friends and family. And really what we're doing is expanding that friends and family network. So you will see we have invested in we've invested in a lot of farms and food systems, the cidery, our lovely Mountain Townsend Creamery with the cheeses that we now have here in town, bistro, but also entertainment venues, housing building ventures, bicycle shops. We have light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, roofing, and even more that I can't list here, quite a variety of businesses. And I'll tell you that over the years, since 2008, we've probably invested close to $10 million now. The thing is, though, that we don't really track that, and this is the trick, because we had to find a way to do this that met the rules of the SEC, you can't do public offerings and things of that nature. So we were very careful to figure out a way that we could do this kind of introduction, get these people together without becoming an entity unto ourselves. So Lion is, like I say, it's a network, and it's a spin-off from Local 2020. It's not even officially part of Local 2020 anymore. It's just an independent network. But it's not an entity. It's just a process for sharing of information, but there is no collective information sharing or guidance or anything of that nature to keep this thing legal. So basically what we did, though, we do have a membership process. And the reason we did that is that we require people to sign a membership agreement to allow for confidentiality, conflict resolution, and to give a disclaimer to Lion for any legal liability. So that's one thing, but anybody can pretty much become a member. The current members have to approve new members. But other than that, if you're a local resident, it is local. The L in Lion is very important, both for the members and for the businesses. You have to be within East Jefferson County. Once you're a member, then you just kind of sit quiet and wait. And then business opportunities come in. When there's a business that needs funding, they submit a form that just says, hey, I'm here. Would you like to meet me? Basically, this is who I am. This is the concept behind my business, either a new business or my expansion. And I'd be happy to come and talk to you and, let you get to know me a little bit better. And that's kind of the last place Lion is actually involved, is we will facilitate that initial meetup where people can come together in a semi-social environment where it really is just to kind of make introductions, get to know each other. The person bringing forward the opportunity might get up and speak a little bit about, who they are, why they're passionate about what they're doing, what they're excited about, and share a little bit about the business. But that's about it at that level. And then as those relationships form, the members then can get back in touch with the businesses and say, well, let's go out for coffee, let's learn a little bit more about each other. And then if it's mutually agreeable, they'll start sharing things like business plans and the financials, et cetera. And then those individuals work one-on-one to create the investment. Lion is not at all involved at that point. So another thing that we learned in the process of doing this is that we really are not a standalone entity. Nothing really is, of course, we all know that. But we are part of this larger investing ecosystem. That's how we became to think of it. And that is that, we have local banks that traditionally have served this role, and they're starting to come back into that. We'll see how long that lasts. After the recession, they had to pull back quite a bit, but they're starting to be a little bit more active again with helping small businesses. But we're in partnership with our local banks. They're aware of us, and we actually have our local banks send people to Lion when they can't quite meet the regulations that are in place right now for loaning to small businesses. They will send them to Lion to get them to the point where they are bankable. They can go back and start getting their funding from the bank and then releasing the funds back into the investors to invest in the next business that comes along. We also work very close collaboration with the Small Business Development Center. Our Economic Development Council actually now is kind of helping us front this. This is a 100% volunteer thing because there is no organization, there is no staff. It's a kind of an interesting challenge to keep all this stuff knit together and keeping things from falling through the cracks. And our Economic Development Council stepped forward to be the one to coordinate the membership applications and then the opportunity submissions. And then colleges and universities are aware of us, and also with their entrepreneur trainings and whatnot, send people our way as another source for funding. So that's kind of how all that works. For more information, I'll just tell you it was real interesting. Just this last weekend, we had a showing of a film here in town that was really quite inspirational and heartening, especially for someone in my position, having been a founding member of a couple of both Lion and then our locally owned and community-owned mercantile. I could talk a little bit about that if you like, but several businesses were featured in a film called By Us, and it's a documentary celebrating small businesses and community. It's very much in line with the whole what REconomy project is about, and this new documentary just came out, and I've put a link here where you can go out and watch the trailer, and then you can also request to purchase this film. It costs about $20, I think. It's not very expensive, and I think you would find it very inspirational. And it talks a little bit about Lion and then many of the businesses that have sprung up through that, through the support that they've gotten from Lion. Another place you can read about Lion, there are a couple books that we've been mentioned in. One by Michael Schumann, who was actually an early inspiration for us on looking at local economy way back before Lion was even formed. He had come to town and inspired quite a few of us to start thinking about that, and now here we are listed in one of his books. And then Local Investing by Amy Cortez is also another book where you'll find some information about Lion. The fun thing about that is Lion is now all over the country. We just did this to make it work here. We realized our businesses needed to have this level of support, and we had investors who wanted to be able to invest locally. We came up with this little thing for ourselves to make it work here, to make us more resilient, and it kind of took off. And we have seen similar this model used now in many communities across the country. We're happy to share what we know about getting it done. Of course, what we did have it tested legally here in Washington State. We encourage, if you're out of state, to whatever you come up with, to have it tested against your own state laws as well as the federal law. The information on kind of how it works, our Local 2020 hosts a web page just to help facilitate the members and the businesses to submit their forms. But there's another website that has been created by one of our key founding members to discuss the whole concept of local investing in general, and that's the localinvesting.com. And on that site, you'll find a lot more information about this topic in general, as well as a nice little film about Lion and some of the businesses that we've supported here. So with that, I think I'll stop going on, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah. It's so inspiring to hear how much Lion has been able to accomplish and all the local businesses you've supported. And with both Lion, yeah, it is really, I've heard a bit, but this is the most in-depth, and it's really amazing. And with both Lion and LCLT, just for our audience, of course you're just getting an introduction to these models, and there's a lot more to learn about the nuts and bolts if you want to try replicating them in your community, like Deborah was just talking about. So be sure to check out the websites for both of these organizations, as well as the other resources that have been mentioned today. Especially if you're interested in local investing, there's a lot to learn about the SEC guidelines and how to navigate those, and the book Deborah mentioned, Local Dollars, Local Cents, does a good job of providing an introduction to that. So now I would love to open it up to the audience for questions. If you have a question, if you can hit 1 on your keypad, please. I think Caroline's going to be calling on folk. And in the meantime, while we get the stat going, give people a chance to think about their questions. My question to both Deborah and Sandy and the rest of the LCLT team is just, given these experiences, what advice do you have to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to be doing projects like you've created?
Would you like to go first, Deb?
You go ahead, Sandy.
Okay. So I'm not good really at advice. I think, but anyway, I'll do my best here. But first of all, find what you love and then do more of it. Because I think underlying all success in this wild and crazy world that we live in, that really matters. And then ground what you love in really good decision making. You know, ground it in relationships with people, ground it in very strong financial foundation, ground it legally. You heard Deb speak about how Lion tested it legally. We do that with all of our, you know, we're dealing with land, and we know that land can be taken from people. So you ground everything you do in the strongest legal system that you can, and then ground it with the ecology, the environment around you. I always tell people it's really good to have mentors, people that you can just call. Maybe it's only 5 minutes. You tell them you have just hit something that you have not a clue what to do. Do not suffer that, right? When things get tough, you have to breathe, you have to reach out, and, you know, just make sure you're flexible enough to adjust your vision to what feedback you're getting from around you. So.
That's great, Sandy. I concur with what you're saying there, and especially on that last point. That's one thing I was thinking about, is really being willing to be adaptable to new information, new circumstances. You know, with Lion, we had to evolve it, and I think if you look at the slides, they even say it's an evolving process. We used to have, for instance, the opportunities actually come in and present us with, you know, I need X amount of dollars, I'm interested in these kind of terms and that kind of thing, right from the onset. And we found out later on, not in our own community, but in other communities that implemented it, they ran into some legal challenges with that. So we had to adapt it. And so you have to be willing to constantly change, but also don't let it hold you back. You know, explore all your options, utilize your community. I think what you were talking about in the Community Land Trust and what we do quite a bit in Local 2020 as well is you bring the community together and use that wealth of knowledge that you have in your own community to make this work for you. The other thing we tell people, like with Lion, you can use our model and it's great, but you know, take it and evolve it to work for your community. Other communities have done it without a membership model, and that's working for them. So, you know, don't lock in to just one way of doing things if you can find a better way for your community that addresses all the legal and environmental aspects you have to face.
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to say, thank you for that, Deb, is that I think we all have to prepare ourselves to be wildly successful.
Mm-hmm.
Be
That's
willing
right.
to stand in that. And you know, it's not an ego stance. It's that if you look and follow nature, nature is abundant. Nature is wildly successful when we allow the system to move and flow, and we need to allow our organizations, our businesses, our wealth creation, our community relations. We need to allow all of those to be full on flourishing despite what the background noise is.
Thank you. It's super inspiring. Caroline, do you want to take a few questions from the audience?
Yes, we have a few people lined up. I'll start with Christina, then Cassandra, and then Marilyn. So Christina, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question for both Sandy and Deborah in turn. Sandy, I was looking at the pictures of the wonderful homes that you built, and the first thing that came to mind is, how does this overlap, or does it, with Habitat for Humanity? Because we have a Habitat for Humanity that's pretty active around here, and I wonder if there's a way to sort of maybe work with them to do sustainable homes, and I didn't know if you'd ever done anything like that.
So we learned a lot from Habitat for Humanity when we first began, but we are not Habitat for Humanity for a lot of different reasons. But I think they are, it's up to everyone. You decide, can you work together as partners? You'll find sometimes with Habitat for Humanity, they build rather quickly. So sometimes if you're looking for, say, a house that will last 200 years, Habitat also can build that way, but you have to make sure in your relationship that that's what you say is important to you, that you want to build for a house that will withstand the test of many, many generations. Sometimes they don't put on resale restrictions. So here we say that we want to build a house once and have it be forever affordable. So we own the land, and then the homes are owned by the people that live in them. But we put an equity cap on them so that they can't, because we live in an explosive real estate market, we make sure that the homes will be affordable for many, many generations to come. So I love the work of Habitat for Humanity. I would just say that if you would like to work with them, just make sure that your organization, theirs, can find a really happy meeting place.
Okay, that's a good idea. What does that mean, you put an equity cap on them?
Let's say that on Lopez Island, real estate will go up 190% in 1 year. We put a cap on saying, okay, that's fine, but you have agreed that your cap will be at 5% simple interest per year, and that's how it stays. So that's considered an equity cap.
And you said they own the house, but you own the land.
Yes, so the land is separate. So we're a community land trust, meaning we invest in land for community as a community resource for such purposes as affordable housing, as renewable energy, as cooperatives, all of those things. So the land is held in trust. And then, say a group of people needs affordable housing, that housing will be developed on that land the community land trust owns, but it will be deeded to them as a housing co-op. So it is forever separate. The land never sells again. So even though they have an equity cap, they're only selling the right to the house and a 99-year renewable lease to the land. But the land is not selling over and over again, and therefore it's been removed from the speculative market.
Interesting.
I'd
And then
like to.
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Could I come back to you, Christina, with your question to Deborah,
sure.
and go to some others first? Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. Cassandra, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's just super honoring and inspirational to be with all of you this morning. Great to hear your voices again, Sandy and Maria. We met at the CLT conference in Utah, and we're doing the CLT here in Sonoma County. And so I've got a couple of specific questions about what I learned more from you today. And that the first one is about you talked about that you created a cooperative to fund and develop, is what I heard, so that you could do this building. And so I'd like to hear some more specifics about that, because that's one of the big things that we're facing is how to raise money to become developers of permanently affordable housing. And then the other question I have is, how do you, I'm super inspired in the way that the CLT, Lopez, has all of these other dimensions to it that has to do with food and agriculture and educating children and all of that. And we live in an area that is just super rich with programs like that already exist. So I'm wondering if you have ideas for us about how we would network and connect with those, so we're not reinventing the wheel, but also really allying our CLT with those kinds of pre-existing programs. Thank you.
Hi, I recognize your voice, so I know exactly who you are. And so this is a very, I don't think we have enough time to do all of this, because what you've asked is very deep and wide, and it would take a long time. But first of all, you're probably the only game in town. We're the only game in town. So I'm sorry I gave the wrong impression that we did not serve as the developer. Lopez Community Land Trust did, and the group of people that applied became a housing co-op, but I didn't mean to say that a housing co-op approached us, although it can work like that. I can spend some time with you on the phone after or email, just talking you through the steps of what it means to be a developer and working through some of the issues on that, and just because of time right now. And then in terms of interacting with others, really it's all about deep listening. We don't want to, we're not in a race with each other, right? We just are really trying in a community to put a safety net and to allow our communities to thrive to the highest and best they can. So as a community land trust, you often have access to land. Usually community land trusts are quite skilled at doing capital projects. So I would just, look at where your skills lie, interact with those around you that are already doing these very cool projects, and then see where the gaps are and if your skill set can meet that gap. And again, we can talk more about that, but I'm very aware of the time.
Thanks, Sandy. I'll definitely hit you up for that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great. So moving on to Marilyn, and then to Karen, and then back to Christina. So Marilyn, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I can pass. Actually, my question was answered.
All right. Thank you very much. Karen, go ahead.
Hi. I have a question for Deborah. I was living in Totnes when they had the first local entrepreneurs forum, and I approached Case Kolf about this, about having something like this in Totnes and in Port Townsend, where I live now. And I don't know if he understood what I was getting at, but I think he said there were some kind of legal restrictions about having a community forum like in a big community center where potential entrepreneurs could pitch their idea to the entire community. Would that be possible to happen here?
Yes, I think it can, and that's something that I think is happening in some of the other communities. They call them pitch nights, and I think you can read more about that on the local investing website that I pointed to at the end of my discussion here, how other people are doing it. The thing you can't do, I think what Case is referring to, is that you can't do a large public offering. You have to be really careful about pitching financials. But if you're pitching who you are, and I have this great vision, and this is what I'm going to be doing, and do you want to be my friend? Do you want to learn more? Can we go out to coffee? That's fine, but they can't be pitching a specific investment opportunity. It's more of a just learning about what's going on in your community, who are the people there who are doing exciting things, what are some of the up-and-coming businesses. That, I think, is legal. It's just you can't go out and make I need $20,000 for a 5-year term kind of a thing.
Right, because I'm interested in organizing a community meeting like this. It was really successful in Totnes. Several small businesses got up off the ground. A new CSA started. It brought the community really together. So I don't know if there's anybody else interested in working with me on this project, but I would love to see an entrepreneurs forum here in Port Townsend.
Okay, so you're here in Port Townsend, Karen?
Yes.
Why don't you get a hold of me? We're actually having a meeting tonight with Lion members to kind of talk about some of the next steps and things we want to do, and I'll be sure to bring this forward, and you could get back in touch with me and find out where we're going with that.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.
Perfect. So we're going to go back to Christina, who had a question for Deborah, and then I would like to bring up a question that was sent in, that was typed and sent in. And then if there are any last minute, I think we might have time for one other hand up. So if you have a burning question, best to press 1 on your keypad now. Christina, over to you.
Oh, I just had a quick question for Deborah. You said it's important to have it tested against your own local laws. Do you just mean take your paperwork to a lawyer and have them look at it? Is that what you were saying?
Yes. We used somebody here that was familiar with both the federal and Washington State investment. So there's the SEC that you have to worry about, but then each state also has certain laws and opportunities on what you can do with investments. So, for instance, here in Washington, we were able to use a direct public offering, which we used at the Quimper Mercantile that I mentioned, where we could actually go out and sell shares to Washington State residents, but it had its own limitations. So every state has its own rules and regulations as well. But if you find anybody that's a lawyer that's familiar with financial systems law, you definitely should get a review.
Okay, and then I was interested in, Sandy was going to talk a little bit more with someone about how she got together the money and so on, and I would love to hear that as well, but I don't know if that's possible, so just putting that out there, and we can move on to the next person.
Well, this is Sandy, and I'm happy if Marissa has my email, but we can set up a few people on a call, or however you want to do that.
Okay, that'd be cool.
Great, thank you. This might be our final question, and then we'll do some closing comments. So this is from Rebecca, mentioning that land trusts or community housing projects sometimes struggle with interpersonal relationships that unravel the trust or the project. How do you keep a healthy community going that can sustain a community? I want to take that on, Sandy.
What a great question. Yeah, yes, so Rhea and I will both answer, and first it'll be Rhea.
I use 3 principles that I learned from Meg Wheatley, which was value relationships above whatever you're trying to do, and to have a clear vision and just share abundant information, because a lot of people's responses are just based on stuff they didn't know. And so I use those 3 principles. Relationships value very highly, keep the vision clear, and share information abundantly. And the other thing that we do is training. We train our prospective homeowners sometimes as much as a year ahead of time. And they have to practice decision making, how they want to name their neighborhood, where they want their home to be sited, which of the homes they want to have sited, etc. So, and then because we demand sweat equity, it's hard for people to have a deep falling out when they've dug this ditch together or built this on the same roof together. The sweat equity has been major in keeping relationships going.
Yeah, and Chom is here with us, and she actually lives in one of the neighborhoods, and I'd like to say that over the 27 years, there have been many sticky problems and interpersonal relationships. But I have to tell you, strong documents, that just lay out. If you get into a really messy situation, you have your documents. And I just remind people, go back to them, read them, understand them. It's what everybody committed to. That is not to say everything is rosy and blissful. It's not. But I'd like to give Chom a moment to. Do you want to say anything about that?
I just feel that what Rhea said really true. I think the process of doing something, with your own hand, involvement from the start or throughout the process is what really creates a relationship that's long-lasting. And so as a homeowner in this process, I feel my house is not a commodity, it's my baby. If there are problems, we'll just have to work with it, because it's something that I help create by hand, and so it's part of me.
Yeah, so I think that, a clear set of agreements that you enter into is really helpful. It, doesn't prevent issues from coming up, but when they do come up, it helps pave the way. Training is really important. And then doing things together on a regular basis so that your neighbors remain more human help. And I think it's like anything, democracy is messy, it's difficult, people like to shy away from it. I mean, look at all of us today, right? We should be hiding under our beds, scared to death, but we're not. We are out here, we're talking about what we're going to do, et cetera, because we're participants. So, yeah, it takes work, though. It's not something that's ongoing.
Thank you, Sandy, for that and all of the questions and all of the answers. Marissa, over to you for the closing comments.
Sure. Thank you all. I just have a few things to mention responding to some of the questions that came up. One is just that group dynamics and interpersonal relationships are one of the biggest challenges to doing all sorts of grassroots change-making work, and something we're paying a lot of attention to and also have a lot of resources for on our website, and are always offering training about that piece. And then also that today's conversation is just the tip of the iceberg. There's obviously so much more to learn about these models, as well as all the other models that are featured in our report. So please do check out the report and the websites and the other resources we've referenced today. And if you're serious about taking this work further, consider applying for our REconomy cohort, just so we can give you some extra assistance with connection to resources and possibly mentors and things like that. In particular, I know the organizer of the local economic forums in the UK would be willing to mentor folks. And there's also a way to do direct public offerings that's come up a few times today in a way that works with the revised SEC guidelines, which some of the enterprises in our report have used to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for their enterprises. They're working with a skilled lawyer. But you can learn more about that in the book Local Dollars, Local Cents as well. So just this really is the tip of the iceberg. I hope it's giving you all some inspiration and stimulation and desire to dig deeper and learn more. And I want to really thank our wise, knowledgeable speakers today, and then turn it over to both of you, Sandy and Deborah, for any closing comments. Sandy, do you want to go first?
Oh, yeah, it's really meaningful to do this conversation today. And yeah, I gain a lot by interacting with people, watching people's ideas from the concept stage into manifestation. And I think it's very powerful. I think human beings that are in balance, like I said, with their community, deep listening, with ecology, deep understanding of ecology, and also with the legal and economic systems that we share together, there's no end to what we can create for the good of the whole. Yeah, I'm happy to be with all of you, and really I want to thank Transition US for all of your work, and everybody. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dan.
Yes, and I'd echo that as well. I think there's so much good work going on, and like has been said before, being here today in particular is very helpful in feeling we can go forward. We are going to go forward, but it is incumbent upon us to take care of ourselves and our community. And I really applaud everybody who has taken the time to participate today. It's an act of leadership, and that's one of the things that we find a little challenging sometimes in our volunteer efforts. It's the same people that always have to that are stepping forward to take the lead on a lot of these things. And more people need to realize you have that power within you to lead. Everybody can take a leadership role here, and if you're passionate about seeing something like this happen in your community, step forward and make it happen. You'll be amazed at the level of support that you get. So I've benefited from that many times over myself, just by stepping forward, and people come behind and hold me up and give me the resources I need to move the ball forward. None of us do this on our own. We're all in this together. So thank you for bringing this forum together, putting the resources together, and helping us to share the information. There's no ownership here necessarily. It's all about sharing what works and helping each other succeed. The more we each succeed, the better we'll all be. So thank you very much for your time today and this opportunity.